Overthinking is a super problem that will rob you of hours. But flipping your thoughts will flip that super problem into a superpower.
Wisdom is this special power that we can access to see the unseen, to speak the unspoken, to touch the intangible.
Wisdom is the power to turn overthinking into overachieving. What up, y'all? Thanks for pulling up to the Daily Bar podcast, where wisdom is what this podcast is all about. In every podcast episode, I'm always going to invite y'all to please follow me on my social media. Not only because I want you to be a part of the Daily Bar community, I want you to get the full Daily Bar experience. See, on my social medias is where several days throughout the week, all month long, I post a Daily Bar. Rhymes like these that you can think of like an espresso shot of wisdom to boost your day, maybe to give you a new thought or just to give you a little bit of inspiration, motivation, transformation. That's what wisdom does. And that's what this podcast is all about. So you want to make sure you follow me at Spence_4 HIRE. Let's get into it. Overthinking. It's a super problem that will rob you of hours, but flipping your thoughts can flip that super problem into a superpower. Overthinking is when the very thoughts that should be working hard to serve us actually work against us. Overthinking can paralyze our pursuits. Overthinking can sabotage our strengths. Overthinking can demolish our dreams. Now, obviously, thinking is a necessary part of any endeavor. Thinking is a necessary ingredient in any success. But just like any recipe, too much of any ingredient can cause the desired result to turn out bad. It can ruin it. And overthinking can do the same thing to us, especially when the thoughts we overthink with are negative. In our very first episode, I talked about the power of positive thinking. So you might want to go back and check that episode if you haven't watched or listened to that yet. After you've listened to this one, it'll make a whole lot more sense. But in that first episode, I talked about something called the negative detector. And I talked about how we need to scan our thoughts with the negative detector to see if we need to permit them to be allowed to work in our mind. If they're allowed to be on our playlist of thoughts that help us or not, if we should let them influence us or not. Today, we're going to take a look at and break down what it actually looks like when we scan our thoughts with the negative detector. So to do that, let's get into a little case study. Let's take a look at what happens first when we overthink. Let's take a look at what the overthinking process actually looks like when we allow it to happen in our minds. So please translate this hypothetical scenario into something that makes sense for you. But it's August, right? So I think a good example right now that we can do a case study on overthinking is the whole idea of going back to school. Let's use two different scenarios here. Let's think about the student who took a gap year. Maybe you are a 2024 graduate, and instead of going into 2024 fall season, you took a gap year. So here we are in 2025, heading towards the fall, and you're thinking like, now it's time for me to get back to work, time to go back to school. Or maybe you're somebody who that gap distance is a whole lot further. Maybe you are 4 jobs, 3 kids, 2 marriages, and 1 midlife crisis, separated from school, and now you think it's time to get back into going to school. Let's look at that just as an example. But again, please, you can fill in the blank with anything that means more of a reality to your world. So we start with a great thought. I should go back to school. Maybe you found something new that you love, or maybe you're trying to rekindle the flame of a past dream, and school is the next step for that. Okay, that's great. So you think, I should go back to school. And then the following thoughts that come along with it normally support and drive that idea, like, well, okay, what program should I be in? Where could I go to school at? You start daydreaming, looking ahead like, man, how can my life be different if I pursue this career? What could I do with the new money that I'm making, my salary, all of that? My lifestyle could change. All of these things are great thoughts that follow along and build a nice long list. And this is where overthinking actually has the superpower, because you're driving enough thoughts to support and drive you into something. So even though this is a long list of thoughts, it's good because they're healthy. And there's probably another long list of ideas that are even smaller that support it, like, I wonder what the food on campus is like. So here's the catch. As your mind keeps rolling, producing thoughts to support the initial thought, the inevitable is going to happen. One of these thoughts is going to hit the floor of your mind. Think of it like a coin, and it's going to bounce and flip over to the other side. Yeah, you initially started with, you know what? I'm glad I took that gap year. what I'm saying? It felt good to not be bound by deadlines and schoolwork and pressure. It was great. Now it's time to get back to work. Except, man, now I'm a year behind my graduating class. Anybody else who went to school straight in, I'm behind now. I don't really know if I'm too late for this or not. Now that thought seems harmless, and it is, as long as it doesn't lead to another one. Because usually one negative thought leads way to another one, and once overthinking starts, it's an avalanche. The next thought that can come right after it is like regret. Yeah, I shouldn't have taken that gap year. I should probably just let this go now. The person who's been out of school for a long time might start thinking thoughts like, yeah, man, I'm so out of touch with school life. I don't even know if I can use those same skills anymore. I'm probably too far gone from this. And you see, we just start overthinking ourselves right out of our next best thing. See, this is why it's a super problem. Because once this avalanche of thoughts starts rolling, it almost seems like it's impossible to stop. And it's such a super problem because it robs us of such great things that we aspire to do with our lives. But what if we flipped it? What if that same problem of overusage of our mind with negative thoughts, we could take that power and reharness it, and we can turn it into something that's an unstoppable move towards the direction of our dream? If you didn't like a song on the radio, you change the station. Do you do the same with a thought that's causing frustration? You can, but it's going to take a constant scanning with the negative detector of all those thoughts that creep into your mind that have the potential to talk you out of pursuing your goals. And here's the thing, not all of the thoughts that creep into our mind are necessarily negative. Sometimes they're just awareness of maybe the realities or the challenges that can become obstacles. Those kind of thoughts aren't bad. It's good. It's just that those realistic thoughts, they normally have a negative thought lurking behind them. Like bro leaning out from behind the tree, hands folded, licking his lips like, yeah, now's my move. It's like negative thoughts call dibs on realistic or challenging thoughts. We think that realistic or challenging thought, and then the thought that creeps out right from behind it is, man, this is gonna be tough, so I guess I can't do this. Or I guess it's just not for me. Hold up. Just like a soundtrack makes a film powerful and inspiring, your thoughts are your soundtrack, so build one that's self-admiring. So here's where the negative detector comes in. Thoughts creep in. Are they realistic? Are they challenging? Or are they flat out negative? You hit it with the negative detector, and here's what that involves. You ask and you challenge each of these thoughts with 3 questions. The first question is this: is it true? A thought isn't negative if it's simply just pointing out the challenge, like going back to school is going to be tough. That's true. But is this true? And I don't think I'm going to be able to find the balance to do it all, so I might as well not even try. Unless you've proven that, that's not necessarily true. No, that's negative. You don't know that. If it's not true, it's already failed the first test. The next question we scan it with is this: is it helpful? It's a helpful thought to think, man, I don't know how I'm going to pay for school. School is going to cost. That's absolutely helpful because you do need to know how you're going to pay for it. That's helpful, but it's not helpful to tack on to the end of that thought and you're never going to figure out how to pay for it anyway. That's not helpful. The last question is so important. And it may not seem like it is compared to the other two because they seem like facts, right? Like, is it true? Is it helpful? But this one is so important. Is it kind? When a thought comes into your mind, you need to scan it with, is it kind? Listen, no one's voice is going to be louder, more critical, and even just more downright mean to us than our own voice, our own thoughts. And so we need to scan these thoughts with, is it true? Is it helpful? And most importantly, is it kind to me? Maybe to somebody else, is it kind? For example, the thought of, I guess I'm just not smart enough to go back to school. That's not kind. That thought does not get to be on the playlist of your thoughts that play over and over again on your mind, on repeat, driving your life. That's not kind to you. There's only one person standing in my way. That person is me, and I quit doing that yesterday. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? If a thought in your mind cannot pass those 3 questions as a test, you need to cut it and you need to replace it with a new thought. Flipping that super problem of overthinking into a superpower, it looks something like saying, yeah, going back to school is going to take time. And building a better relationship with my kids, that's going to take time. Or starting a business, that's going to take time. Yes, absolutely. But tacking on you'll never find the time, or you're not good enough, or you're just not that person. That's not true. That's not helpful. That's not kind. Super problem, let's flip it. Superpower, yeah, it's going to take time, and I'm worth it. Yes, it's going to take time, and my kids are worth it. Yes, it's going to take me growing and changing, but I believe I can overcome any challenge. That is true. That is helpful. That is kind. It absolutely takes work to think like this, but positive and negative thoughts are like faith and fear. One leads, one lurks. Fear comes free. Faith takes work. Start scanning your thoughts with the negative detector. 3 questions. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? I want to give a big shout out to John Acuff and to the book Soundtracks. That's where I got these 3 questions from. Our thoughts are like a soundtrack that play in our mind. We build playlist of our thoughts, but you got to be intentional about it because our brain is always on shuffle, bringing us thoughts that aren't necessarily helpful for us. And once one hits, it can avalanche into the next, and now overthinking has become that super problem, but we can flip it into a superpower. We can tack on and build a playlist of positive reinforcing thoughts if we're intentional about it. So look, as always, I'm going to put the Audible link to his book in the description of the podcast. I'm always going to encourage you to do Audible. For me, myself, when I got the beats on, and if they're not playing beats, it's because I'm listening to a book most of the time, actively pursuing wisdom. Wisdom is something that we got to go after. So I highly invite you to use Audible as a way to take in wisdom when you're doing something else. Takes a lot of time to sit down and read a book. For those of you guys who are readers, get the physical book, but I'm always going to supply you with the Audible link. Guys, listen, thank you so much for always stopping in and being a part of the Daily Bar community, making wisdom a priority. If the podcast means something to you, if you like it, please rate it. That helps boost it to the top so people can help find it. Share it with somebody who needs wisdom. We all need wisdom. So I would appreciate it a lot. Remember, make sure you follow me on my socials at Spence_4 HIRE. I'm going to see y'all in September, but always keep an eye on your notifications. You never know, I might hit y'all with a bonus episode. Might do it this month. All right, until then, next episode, y'all have a good one. For more content, original music, and speaking and coaching services, hit me up at my website, Spence4h.com.